All right, great. Well, we're going to talk about hormone replacement therapy. We're going to talk about thyroid medications. We're going to talk a little bit about bone drugs. So maybe just, I know you guys were here thinking it was for a different class, but who here is either on a thyroid med or knows somebody who's on a thyroid med? 2 of 3, 4? Okay, well, that's good.
I don't know whether I should be or not.
Okay, well, there, great. We will dive into this. Now, there's a lot of notes here. I'm not great at following the notes just because I have a lot of stuff in my head, and I've worked with thousands of people, not thousands of people with thyroid issues, hundreds of people with thyroid issues, because I work with people with all varying different types of issues. But I will say very confidently that I have seen many dozens of women get off of thyroid medication. Dozens and dozens of women. And so I'm going to share kind of those thoughts on how I feel like we have been successful in doing that. You may not realize, I don't think I have the statistics here, but levothyroxine specifically is the number one thyroid medication prescribed and one of the top prescribed medications, period. Like just in the pharmaceutical industry, the thyroid. So I'm going to focus a lot tonight on the thyroid just because I think that's the main thing you see with women, especially. It's not that men can't have low thyroid, but in women, there's a lot. Doctors are very quick to find a number that's off and say you have hypothyroid and put you on a drug and say it's going to fix it, right? That's a very common practice, unfortunately. And so I will let you go through the notes. I'm not going to go through all the notes. I'm not going to talk about all the important functions of the thyroid. I think all those things are important, but really my desire with the class is to help you know how to get off of the thyroid med or never need one in the first place. Let me give you an example. I've worked with many people with different health conditions. And I look at their blood work and I say, well, if you went to a medical doctor, you'd be diagnosed Hashimoto's, or you'd be diagnosed hypothyroid. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune form of hypothyroid, which is low thyroid. And I don't, of course, do those types of diagnoses. And I'm working with this person for XYZ issue that has nothing to do with their thyroid, right? They might have some thyroid numbers that are off. And it's amazing. It would have been fun to bring some like before and after blood work examples. It's amazing how many people I've worked with, not working on thyroid at all, working on other issues. We recheck blood work and their thyroid numbers look perfect. So it's just the, what I think is common sense that I always have said from the beginning is God designed the body to heal itself. And it's always fascinating to me. So I don't know if anyone's experienced this. I know a couple of you raised your hand about thyroid meds. It's always been fascinating to me that somebody can get into a car wreck and break bones, and the doctor has 100% confidence that your bones are going to heal, right? Like who breaks a bone and doesn't think their bone's going to heal, right? Everybody thinks their bone's going to heal. My mom actually just broke 2 bones in her arm last weekend. It's really rough. We didn't get to go down for Father's Day because my mom broke 2 bones in her arm. She had a 3-hour surgery. Not good. But we know that those bones are going to heal. Yet you can get blood work back that shows you have low thyroid, and the doctor puts you on Synthroid or levothyroxine and says, you have to take this the rest of your life. There's nothing you can do about it. The thyroid's just going to keep getting worse. So it's like, how are doctors trained to think that serious issues like broken bones can heal, but somehow your thyroid can't heal or can't fix itself? And so I'm talking about thyroid tonight a lot because, like I said, it's the most common one, but this would be for any hormone-related therapy. I see a lot of women that take troches. If you know what a troche is, they put, these things under their tongue that have estrogen or progesterone or testosterone or DHEA or different steroid hormones. But my point is I've worked with lots of people where we're not even working on their thyroid and all their thyroid numbers get better. So in other words, the thyroid, just like anything else, can heal itself. So you can look through all the benefits of thyroid function. It is very important for men and women, but especially women because it's related to body temperature and weight and a lot of different things. So hair, skin, and nails, there's so many important reasons that we need a healthy thyroid. So I did put a statistic in number 3, over 120 million thyroid prescriptions. I mean, there's only 333 million people in the country. So 1 out of 3 people-ish are getting a thyroid prescription. Levothyroxine ranks among the top prescribed of all medications. So it's very common for people to get put on thyroid medication. So number 4, I talk about the most common thyroid medications. I get into some of the details. I'm just going to share my experience. And I'm going to make a pretty bold statement. If you or anyone you know is on thyroid medication, that I'm making this statistic up. I have no idea what this statistic is, but 95% of women on thyroid medication do not have a thyroid problem. Has nothing to do with their thyroid. So the reason that's important is that people get put on a drug that is synthetic, that is replacing the hormones that your body's naturally designed to create, which tells your thyroid to what? Stop working, stop making hormone. It's actually the hypothalamus that makes TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. But it basically tells your body to stop making that hormone because, hey, there's plenty available, you don't need to make anymore. So it's shutting down your own natural production. And whether that's men taking testosterone shots or women taking estrogen or any of those things, I'm always looking for an alternative first because we don't want your body shutting down its own natural production of something God gave you, right? So that's what really, I think, bothers me about thyroid medication is that it's not a thyroid problem. The only time it's a thyroid problem is when somebody's thyroid gets damaged. So what damages a thyroid gland? Really, it's like radiation. That's why sometimes if you go to get x-rays or dental x-rays, they'll put that big lead, vest on you to absorb like the x-rays to protect the thyroid because that's what damages it, things like radiation. And some people, they even radiate their thyroid to like kill their thyroid when they have like an overactive thyroid. So it would take some type of usually a medical intervention or something serious to actually damage the thyroid and have it be a true thyroid problem. So what causes thyroid problems? And I'm going to talk about it here in low T4 production. Okay, T4 is a hormone that your body makes, and your liver converts T4 into T3 to make thyroid hormone. And the reason I'm mentioning T4 is that's levothyroxine, which is the most commonly prescribed thyroid drug, is basically T4. And I give you all the reasons here for low T4 production. And this is not information we don't know. It's just doctors don't ever look for like what's actually causing the problem. So here are the problems. And here's how I've seen a lot of people get off of thyroid medication. Number 1, and I'm not saying these are in any particular order, but number 1 is just deficiency. The thyroid gland does not work without iodine, period. You cannot make thyroid hormone without iodine. And I think iodine is one of the biggest deficiencies we have. I think magnesium is the biggest deficiency human beings have. You could probably argue iodine's right up there. Of course, a lot of other cultures, Japanese cultures, Asian cultures, maybe eat more seaweeds and seafoods and things like that. We don't have a lot of foods rich in iodine, so it's pretty common for women to be iodine deficient. I put pretty much every woman I work with on iodine because if you look at the research on cancer, breast cancer prevention, uterine health, fertility, pregnancy, you will see iodine is absolutely crucial for all of those things. And so there's a lot of women that, they don't have damage or a serious thyroid problem. They just don't have the iodine they need to make the thyroid hormone. So why don't doctors try that first, right? They're never going to, because the whole system's set up to prescribe drugs, right? So that's one, is just deficiency. And it's not just iodine. I'm really picking on iodine. I don't know if it lists the other ones here, but like selenium is another nutrient. There's certain B vitamins. So anyway, in other words, there's specific nutrients that the body needs to make thyroid hormone. And again, that's never addressed. So I've seen a lot of women get off of thyroid hormone taking something called, oh, I have it in here somewhere, but it's called Thyroid Nourish. Yeah, I have it under number 9 of all the reasons I have nutrient deficiencies. Thyroid Nourish by Ridgecrest. I have seen a lot of women wean off thyroid medication just by taking something that supports their thyroid, because there's nutritional deficiencies. So that's one. Number 2 is liver. I've seen a lot of liver problems. A lot of people have liver issues. And again, for the body to take T4 and convert it to T3 for thyroid hormone production, that is done by the liver. That conversion takes place in the liver. So you can pretty quickly tell just by looking at somebody's labs. In other words, they have plenty of T4, but their T3 is low. It means their liver's not converting T4 into T3. And so that's a liver issue. So again, I don't use any kind of a thyroid supplement. I just work on supporting the liver, detoxifying the liver. I've had a lot of people do liver gallbladder flushes and things like that. Supporting your liver is very important. It's the main organ that, detoxifies the body, right? It's the main detoxification organ. So if I look at somebody's lab, so what I do is I always look at labs. I look at blood work. Not that there's not other important labs. When it comes to thyroid, it's mainly blood work is what you're looking at. We look at 9 different thyroid markers. And I can look at somebody's blood work and tell them either they have a deficiency, they have a liver issue, T4, T3 conversion problem, or they have an autoimmune thyroid issue, which is a gut issue. So it's like I said, it's not really a thyroid problem, which is why the prescriptions people are being way, way, way over medicated. And the problem, as you might know, is you take a medication, it gives you that hormone that your body doesn't have for different reasons, which you never address. And so you become reliant on taking that hormone the rest of your life. And then women try to come off of the thyroid hormone and they feel junky. It's like, I tried to get off it and I couldn't, so they get back on it. So it just kind of becomes a vicious cycle. So I just kind of mentioned the third one. The third one is autoimmune thyroid. Have you guys heard of Hashimoto's disease or Graves' disease? There's different autoimmune thyroid conditions. Well, I'm a big believer that autoimmune thyroid is not a thyroid problem. It's a gut problem, because you can't have autoimmune disease unless you have gut issues. In other words, you have toxins and undigested foods getting into the blood and parts of the body they shouldn't be. So does anyone know like the number 1 food or thing to avoid that's like the number 1 trigger for Hashimoto's? Sugar would be one. It's not the main one.
No.
What's everyone intolerant to these days? Gluten. So gluten is in structure, it's really similar molecularly to thyroid hormone. And so because we eat gluten, we have gut problems. That gluten gets out into the bloodstream in places it shouldn't be. The body creates antibodies, starts attacking the gluten. Those antibodies also attack thyroid molecules because they look similar to thyroid molecules. So again, that problem with the thyroid is really a gut problem. So when I see somebody with high thyroglobulin or TPO antibodies, which are the 2 markers for autoimmune thyroid, I know there's a gut issue, and we work on diet, we work on gut health, and then you can see those numbers come down. So I've seen people with autoimmune thyroid, Hashimoto's, and I see the numbers come down to normal ranges. So I'll probably just leave it at that for the thyroid, because, I mean, really, that's the main focus, is dealing with nutritional deficiencies, working on gut issues if it's autoimmune, and working on liver issues if there's a conversion problem. So, and I have some other supplements and things on here. Number 5, I have natural alternatives to thyroid medications. So I talk about nutrients, I talk about lifestyle, and then I put the functional medicine approach, which kind of highlights kind of what I just said. I don't have page numbers on here, but it's number 5. It says D, functional medicine approach, identifying and treating the underlying cause. So we're always looking for the root cause. And we'll talk about that next week with diabetes, like what's actually causing diabetes so that you know what to do to reverse it. So I list autoimmune triggers, and I highlight this as a gut issue. Gluten sensitivity, which I mentioned is a main trigger for Hashimoto's. My wife, when we met 15 years, so we've been married 13 years. So we met about 15 years ago. And when I met my wife, she was diagnosed Hashimoto's disease and hadn't had a cycle in 2 years. And, you know, we have 3 kids now, and we haven't even said the word Hashimoto's for her in 15 years. So, you know, there's no reason people can't reverse these issues. So, but I mentioned that because one of the things I had her do right away was get off of gluten, and she immediately felt better because it's a big trigger for Hashimoto's. Infectious disease, I didn't mention that, but their Epstein-Barr virus, if you've heard of that, that can really cause thyroid issues and liver issues and chronic fatigue and other issues. So I wanted to mention infections because fungal issues, especially Epstein-Barr virus, for whatever reason, Epstein-Barr virus is a big issue for thyroid stuff. Again, that's all stuff I test for when I work with people, but gut health, poor liver function, not converting T4 to T3. I mentioned iodine and other deficiencies. So there you go. There's the summary. Any questions on thyroid? Yes.
I wanted to find out about like some of these things like the ashwagandha,
Yes.
and the different things that you're talking about we could do. Are all of those things, do they interact with other medications that you might be taking?
That's a great question. Yeah. So I'm going to say for the camera, she asked if you're taking natural supplements, ashwagandha, maybe iodine, different things, does that interact with your medications? So the general rule of thumb is if you're taking a medication, to take any natural supplement at least 90 minutes before or after.
Oh.
And it's not likely that there would be an interaction, but just in case, because that stuff hasn't all been studied. And so people don't really know. And so if you take your, thyroid supplement first thing in the morning when you wake up, then just maybe wait a couple hours before you take, natural thyroid supplements, or take them at different times of the day. Sorry, you know what? Let me mention one more thing on that, and then I'll get the rest of the questions. And I think I have this at the very end of all the notes, but I'll just talk about it with thyroid. Here's kind of the action plan. Okay, this is what I've seen successfully happen dozens and dozens of times, is you get on the right things you need for the thyroid. The nutritional deficiencies, working on your gut health, whatever. Give it a good month on those things, and then try cutting your thyroid med in half and see how you feel. And, give it a month. And this is the story I hear over and over. I feel fine. I don't feel any different. Okay, well, if it's been a month on half-dose medication and you feel fine, cut it in half again. Now you're down to a quarter dose of the medication. And then again, give it maybe a month, and then you could try to wean completely off. And what I find, and I don't know statistics, because I don't keep those statistics, but the vast majority of the time, women stop taking the thyroid medication and they feel fine. They don't need it. Well, the reason they got on it is either their blood work showed they needed it, even though they didn't feel bad, and the doctor said, you need to take this, right? That happens. Or they actually, was struggling with fatigue and weight gain and hair, skin, nails issues, and, all the symptoms of like low thyroid. And so that's kind of been my philosophy, or my process, is get on the natural things, give it a month, cut it in half, start to kind of wean slowly off. The worst thing that can happen if your symptoms kind of start to come back and you have to get back on the medication, you're not ready yet. That's the worst thing that can happen. That really ain't a big deal. It's not like thyroid medications are dangerous or stopping them is dangerous. You're just not going to feel good. So anyway, I wanted to mention that. Did you have a question?
Yeah, that was right along what I was gonna ask, because I was offline for like 3 weeks
Okay.
and I got tired, I got anxious, I
Yeah.
couldn't sleep. It was just like,
Yes.
and it was just like, oh my gosh. And so when I got back, I was like, oh, goodness.
Right.
As much as I don't want to do that, I'd rather take something, the natural,
Totally.
But that was just what I was gonna say.
Okay. Perfect. Well, just to expand on that, she was basically saying she got off the med, 3 weeks went by, kind of all the symptoms came back. Yeah. That's why I said, you really need to get on something natural first for a while. So I think what some people think, and you might not be thinking this, but just in case, is like some people think, oh, there's a natural substitute, so I'm going to stop my thyroid med and I'm going to take this natural thing. It doesn't work that way, because the reason you got the thyroid symptoms in the first place is because something was off. Again, you were deficient, gut issues, thyroid issues, or liver issues, whatever. So that's why you have to make some changes and give it a good month and then wean off more slow. So if you want to try it again, you could try, Thyroid Nourish or one of our thyroid products, or, again, give it a month and then cut it in half and then kind of go a little bit slower with it. Pay attention to how you feel, and it might be different next time.
They keep going up and down with my thyroid numbers, how much you take. It's like, what is going on?
Like when you check blood work? Yeah, it's really hard to know when people are on thyroid meds, because the numbers are going to fluctuate based on the dosage of the medication. So, yeah. And it's hard to really know. So what I tell women sometimes, I'm like, if you really, really want to know where your thyroid stands, you just have to stop taking the thyroid med, give it a couple of weeks. I don't know what the half-life is. I don't know how long it takes to get out of the system, but give it a couple of weeks, get blood work and see, like, what does your thyroid really look like? Otherwise, you don't really know because you're on a med, right? Was there another question up here on thyroid? No? Good. Okay. So bone drugs I want to hit on because they are pretty popular, and I'm just not a fan at all. And I'm going to tell you why. So in case you know somebody who's on a bone drug, or a doctor's told you have osteopenia, osteoporosis, and you need to take a bone drug. I'm kind of honestly shocked that they're still on the market. And I talk about that in the notes because there's so many class action lawsuits against these bone drugs. It's pretty mind-boggling. So the fact that some of them are still on the market is really kind of surprising to me. So have any of you know anybody who's on any of these bone drugs? You do? You?
They prescribe them to me, but I haven't taken them.
You go, girl. Yes?
My doctor told me that I had just slight signs of osteopenia, and she told me to take, it's not a drug, it's a vitamin.
Okay. Like D3K2 or calcium or?
No, not the calcium.
If you think of it, let me know.
Yeah, it might have been the calcium, but she said something like between 12 and 1,500 milligrams.
Yeah, it might have been calcium. If you're taking that much, but yeah. So, I mean, that's good. It's a better alternative than the bone drugs.
Okay, so that would help.
Well, maybe. I don't think just taking calcium is going to necessarily help. It's not a calcium problem. I'll explain that.
Oh,
Yes.
some of these drugs, it doesn't really seem to help them.
Right. I've heard that too.
It's better.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. So the drugs, she had mentioned that, she knows people on these drugs, it hasn't really helped them. So here's the simplicity of the problem with these bone drugs. Bones are living tissue. Okay. You think of a bone as this like hard, brittle bone, like a dog bone, right? But in your body, if you're alive, it's living tissue. It's living, we know it's living tissue because how does a baby become an adult if their bones don't grow? So your bones are living tissue. And in these bones are something called osteoblasts and osteoclasts. And hopefully I have the osteoblasts and osteoclast right. I might have it reversed, but I believe osteoblasts are the one that build new bone tissue, and the osteoclasts tear away old, dead cells and tissues. So in other words, the bone's constantly building, repairing, renewing. Again, that's how a broken bone can heal, right? None of us deny that a broken bone can heal. So bone's a living tissue. So the problem with the bone drugs is the bone drugs stop the osteoblasts from building new bone. So it basically takes living bone, shuts off the ability of it to generate new bone, which causes the bones to harden. So now that you can't build and make new bone, your bones become hardened and they become brittle. And so it's very, very deceptive, because it's like they're saying, oh, it strengthens your bones. Well, making your bones harder and more brittle isn't strengthening your bones. And the reason there's so many lawsuits is because it actually kills the bone tissue. When somebody falls, what happens? Worse than breaks, shatters into 1,000 pieces. So imagine falling and breaking your hip and, go getting a hip surgery and your hip heals and it's fine, versus falling and your hip shattering in 1,000 pieces. That's what's happening. And so again, the fact that these drugs are still even on the market blows my mind, because there's just lawsuit after law. I mean, have you guys seen the commercials on TV? If you or a loved one's taking Fosamax and has been, and broken a bone, call our law firm. And that's been that way for years, decades. I don't even know how long. So anyway, they are very deceptive in their quote unquote studies and research that it does anything to strengthen bones. And you'll see one of the side effects. What do they call it? Where is it? Jaw osteonecrosis. So look at number 3, dangers and side effects of bone drugs. Drug class biphosphonates. First thing it says is jaw osteonecrosis. Do you know what that means? Jaw death. Literally, your jawbone dies because of what the drug does. So, if doctors truly educated their patients and gave informed consent and be like, hey, you can take this bone drug, it might help you, but these are possibly some of the side effects. Like, how many people do you think would take them? They don't share these things with people. So yeah, you can look at all the side effects and you can see fractures, breast cancer, blood clots, atypical femur fractures. Yeah, just really nasty side effects. So, as I've said many times in classes, nobody here is deficient in a pharmaceutical drug, right? So, if there's something going on with your bones, there's another issue. And there's a few stories we've had just because women would come in and tell us. Like, they were told they had osteoporosis, osteopenia, got on a couple of things, came back and went, hey, I got a bone density scan and my bone density improved. And, they were all excited. So, we've heard some of those stories. Again, not that we've documented, it's anecdotal, but they're true. And I list kind of some of the things that you can do. I'll tell you what I think really the best things you can do are actually very, very, very simple, and they're really just lifestyle things. The best thing you could possibly do for your bones is walk every day in the sun. Like, how many cows and horses and animals in nature get osteoporosis and osteopenia and have bone density problems and break bones? Like, you don't that doesn't happen with animals in nature. And so I think part of our challenge is, we don't do things that are weight bearing. And that's why I said just walking is weight bearing, right? Just walking is using your muscles. And so I don't know if you've heard this or not. I mean, when people lift weights, their muscles get bigger, right? But people's bones get bigger also. And so like if you look at like Olympic weightlifters, not that any of you are going to be Olympic weightlifters, me either, but it's interesting that Olympic weightlifters who lift really heavy weights, they don't just have bigger muscles, all their bones are actually bigger and denser and stronger. Because when you put weight on your bones, it forces your bones to strengthen. So if you go to a lot of chiropractic offices have them. I actually have one here. They have different names, like mine's like a lymphatic machine, but I do have a muscular skeletal setting on it. But it's basically like a vibration plate. So you stand on this plate and you right? You just shake. So it's a vibration plate. And so what that does is by literally standing on this thing for 10 minutes, it's making every muscle and every bone in your body move, which is giving it resistance, which again forces it to get stronger. So there are, and I don't know what some of the like PT clinics and like bone clinics, I don't know if they do some of this stuff. I don't honestly know, but I know they used to do it a lot more, but there are places you can go to regenerate bone health, and that's the kind of things they're doing. They're using lasers, they're using these vibration machines, they're using weight, getting people on weight programs, lifting light weights. You ever seen those gals? Maybe some of you are walking down the street with their little weights. Any of you gals do that? No? Yeah? But seriously, I mean, any type of weight-bearing exercises forces the bone to strengthen. So it's kind of like the old use it or lose it principle. And I really think the most important thing we can do for bone density is sunshine. And I don't think we should be scared of the sun, because when asked questions about that, I've done lots of stuff on that in the past. I don't think the sun is bad. I think it's good for us, and I think we need it. We just don't get enough because we don't live outside. So I'm starting with those things because I think people are quick to want to take a supplement. Like, oh, what do I take to get stronger bones? Well, you can take a supplement. We know that bones need vitamin D3, vitamin K2, magnesium, calcium, phosphorus. We know what bones need. But the problem is not that we're not getting those things in our diet. There's usually other things that are causing the loss of calcium, which I can get into a little bit. I don't know how interested you guys will be in it, but here's a couple of the reasons, okay? I firmly believe that one of the big reasons we have osteoporosis and osteopenia is because of magnesium deficiency. That simple. Because magnesium handles the stress response. Magnesium's in every cell of the body. Magnesium's in every bone tissue of the body. And if you're deficient in magnesium, and magnesium is what handles the stress response, your body starts to actually dump calcium into your tissues and into your blood. And where do you think it gets the calcium from? Your bones. So if your body's acidic, think about standard American diet, soda, fast food, junk food, You have an acidic diet, you're magnesium deficient, your body's going to start pulling alkaline minerals, which calcium is the most alkaline mineral in the body. So the body starts pulling minerals. So I think stress, poor diet, magnesium deficiency, I think that's why we have an epidemic of osteoporosis and osteopenia. So I think the fix is eating whole foods, eating animal protein, bone broth, vegetables, fruit, eating a whole food diet, walking, getting in the sun every day. I really think all those things are more important than any supplement you can take. So, but if you want to take a supplement, go for it. I like the D3. I have a list here on D. I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but on the bone notes, I have alternatives to bone drugs. I talk about the weight-bearing exercise, lifestyle factors. Sunshine is number 1. Of course, smoking, alcohol, all those things are going to pull calcium and magnesium from your body. So I didn't put coffee on there. Coffee, smoking, alcohol will all pull all the minerals from your body. And so, again, I think these habits that we've all struggled with to some extent are partially also responsible for pulling some of these nutrients we need from our body. So, supplementing and getting the nutrients back in absolutely are going to help. I'm just saying these other things I think are helpful too. So I listed a product we have called Bone Renewal, which I really like. And the reason I like it, it's all plant-based and it's all food-based and it's very absorbable. So in other words, everything's from a natural food source. Like the calcium is from Icelandic algae. It's actually from an algae from maybe Iceland. I think it's called Icelandic algae. But anyway, the calcium, the D3, the K2, the magnesium, it's all food-based. It's all plant-based. So you want to get something that's absorbable. So I've definitely seen that help. I've listed one on there called Bone and Connective Tissue by Spirit of Health. I have been shocked at how many women have taken that formula, and we had multiple ones come in and say, I just took that bone and connective tissue formula and I feel better, I feel stronger, and I went to the doctor and he said my bone density improved. And it's just an herbal formula. It's just herbs that are naturally high in calcium. And if you've heard of silica, which is in horsetail, that's another really important nutrient for bone health. And there's an herb called comfrey. Has anybody heard of comfrey root? Okay, do you know one of the nicknames of comfrey root? Bone knit. That's what they call comfrey root, is bone knit, K-N-I-T, as in it heals bones. I'll tell you something else fascinating that I've just been into recently, and I read a couple books on it. It's pretty mind-blowing. There's actually tons of studies out there, so you can look it up. And I'm going to actually try this on my mom. I mentioned my mom just broke 2 bones in her arm, had to get a 3-hour surgery to get everything set right. And magnets, I do magnet therapy in my office for different things, but studies have shown, and there has been proof and documented studies proving it, that if you put a magnet on a broken bone, it heals twice as fast. So I'm going to try it with my mom. And if I see any, I'll let you know. But the reason is, so what I used to have people do when they had sprains or strains or injuries or anything like that, is I would say alternate hot and cold. Hot, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. Why? It brings circulation. It brings blood flow. So what does a magnet do? Brings circulation, brings blood flow. Has anybody here done magnets? Nobody? Man, some people are just into magnets. And it's funny, I talked to somebody yesterday and I was telling about the magnets. She's like, oh, my mom's going to get a kick out of this. She swears the magnet helps her neck pain, and she's been telling us for years to get a magnet. And you think it's woo-woo cuckoo stuff or whatever, right? But magnets are actually phenomenal for healing injuries, for healing broken bones faster, because it massively improves circulation to the body. So, yes, did you have a question?
Does magnets help arthritis at all?
Absolutely.
And what size would magnet? I mean, is it the little ones that you put on a refrigerator, or is it like?
You could use you can use even the little ones, but there's bigger ones that are going to have more of a therapeutic effect. So I have block magnets on my website that are kind of big magnets. And I just got some new ones in that I'm going to put on the website, but they're ones that you can you clip it on. Like if I had a back injury, I could put one on the inside of my shirt and the outside of my shirt, and it would just stay there. And then basically that magnet's working on your back all day long. So you can get them and put them on your clothing and different parts of your body. I'm going to experiment with some shoe sole inserts. So for foot issues, circulation problems, edema, swelling, even like plantar fasciitis, neuropathy, because neuropathy is like where the feet are dying because there's no circulation. So I'm going to start experimenting with some of those too. So I have some more stuff coming on my website. Right now, I just have the big block magnets, but those, and they work. They're going to work a lot better because they're stronger. They're stronger and more therapeutic. You can get the little ones. Here's what I tell people if you get the little magnets like off of Amazon. You're going to read the reviews, right? And some are going to be like, oh my gosh, this is a miracle. It healed my back pain for 5 years. This is awesome. And then you're going to have the 1-star reviews. Don't waste your money. This didn't do anything. It's a total waste of your money, right? And they're probably both right. It's going to help some people. It's not going to help others for various different reasons. But the magnets I use clinically and the magnets I sell are going to be very, very, very powerful magnets. So you have a better chance of them helping you. So, all right. So I kind of at the end, how am I doing on time? Okay. So kind of at the end, I put how to wean off thyroid, HRT is hormone replacement therapy, and bone drugs. And I'll just go through this and we'll just end here. So I put to wean off bone drugs, simply stop. I already kind of explained to you kind of the fallacy of the bone drugs, the deceptive marketing of the bone drugs, that they strengthen your bones by killing your bones, right? That's insanity to me. So I think it's best just to stop. Like I said, there's other things you can do to strengthen your bones, but you have to work at it, right? You have to go walk every day. You have to, do some things to help your bones. To wean off thyroid and hormone replacement therapy, I kind of went over this, so I don't have to do it again, but get on the right things, give it a month, cut it in half, and then you can kind of wean off. Long-term considerations, as with all medications, they never deal with the root cause of the problem, which means the root issue. So just think about what I said. If your thyroid issue was a liver issue, your thyroid issue was a gut issue, or your thyroid issue is an iodine issue, I know people that have been on thyroid meds for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So that's 10, 15, 20 years of not dealing with the real problem, which causes other problems, right? So I'm a big believer in, let me just say this. I don't know, I just feel like I need to say this. I'm a big believer in that the body is fearfully and wonderfully made, okay? And that God is a really, really good designer of the body, which means everything that's happening with the body, every symptom you feel is exactly what's supposed to be happening. And it's a sign that something's off, something's out of balance. I go so far as to say God is so good, he created us to have symptoms we don't like so that we would say, oh, something's wrong, let's do something about it. So one of the reasons I'm so challenged by our modern medical system is it doesn't honor God's design. It doesn't try to see, why is the check engine light on in the car? They say, well, your body fails, your body messes up, it's genetic, all the blah, blah, blah. They say, take this drug, cover it up, right? So if people are going to get off of drugs, medications, pharmaceuticals, or they're not going to be reliant on them as they get older, you have to listen to your body, listen to your symptoms, believe God is good, believe what's happening is what's supposed to be happening when the body's saying, help me, right? And the body's not saying, help me, give me a man-made petrochemical pharmaceutical drug. The body's saying, help me, my liver needs help. Or help me, I need iodine or magnesium. Or help me, I'm not getting enough sunshine. So we're just not in tune with those things. Or, and there's just not enough doctors talking about those things, right? There's not enough naturopaths and homeopaths and chiropractors talking about those things because we kind of got hijacked by the medical system. So whenever I say bad things about the medical system, I always say this. I believe we have the best emergency medical care in the entire world. But I believe we're close to the worst among developed countries on everything else. And that's the problem. So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater because, if I get shot or get in a car wreck, I know they're going to save my life, right? But if you have a chronic illness or you're on a thyroid med or you have chronic fatigue, you have fibromyalgia, you have MS, you have any number of other things, they have really no idea. They really don't. And that's hard. So that's why I do what I do. And that's why I really try to bring it back to like God's design. God is good. You're designed to heal. There are natural things that can help you. And if you do those things now, I don't care if you're in here and you're 50 years old or you're 80 years old, it doesn't matter. I had a 92-year-old woman come to one of my classes, and she was absolutely, I'm going to get off my blood pressure med at 92 years old. And she did. She came in and told me. She's like, I got off my blood pressure med. My blood pressure is great. 92 years old. So if you're still breathing, God designed your body to heal itself. So I'll end with that. Because again, my heart is to, not have people dependent on man-made medical system, man-made pharmaceutical drugs, especially long-term. I want people to be dependent on God and creation and, finding where their body's out of balance, bringing it back into balance. And yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Can your blood test tell the doctors, since you have no clue, but tell the doctor which kind of deficiency it is, and okay, it must be a gut issue, or
Right.
can they tell by the blood test or by the TS3 or TS4?
Medical doctors. So the question is can I'm assuming you're talking about medical doctors.
Yes.
Not me. Okay. So can medical doctors tell by the blood work if it's a deficiency or a liver issue or a gut issue? The answer is yes, if they learned that in school. Do you think they learned that in school?
No.
No. I learned that in school. So we learn different things. They learn if it's this number, prescribe this drug. If this is low, prescribe this drug. If this is high, prescribe this drug, diagnose it this. That's what they learn. So it's just a very different system of medicine. So the information's there. The blood work tells it. The information's there. They're just not, they're trained differently than I was. Yeah.
I take levothyroxine and I have gut and liver issues.
So you said you had gut and liver issues, and then what else did you say? You take levothyroxine and you have gut and liver issues. So there's a perfect example right there. So now you know. Now again, what do I do tomorrow? Like, I don't know. Like, that's not an easy answer, right? But at least you have knowledge, and at least you can maybe, work on these other issues. And
For fatty liver,
right,
they never tell me what I need to do.
right,
They never tell you what you can do.
right.
Here, take this supplement.
Yep. And I can show you before and after blood work of liver enzymes, AST, ALT, fatty liver enzymes in the hundreds, through the roof, coming back into normal within 3 months.
They never even tell me that. I'll take my blood by that work for my T4, but they never say anything about my liver.
Right.
They never.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, what am I supposed to do?
Exactly. But I think I would start with working on your liver. If you know you got a liver issue, probably should work on your liver. So we have a liver cleanse. I've done liver gallbladder flushes with lots of people, or we have a liver section, just get on some liver support. Diet-wise, just real quick for the liver, just taking the pressure and the burden off of the liver. So I would say the main thing to avoid is high fat, high sugar, right? So if you think of what's high fat, high sugar, anything fast food is going to be high fat, high sugar, right? But donuts, all the good stuff, right? Donuts, baked goods, muffins, brownies, cookies, even granola, trail mix, even if you eat yogurt, like it's high fat, high sugar. So if you want to give your liver a break, eat animal protein, fruits and vegetables, and get off the fats, get off the oils, get off the fat and sugar. And that's a huge first step. Get on some liver support. We have all kinds of stuff. And try to get your liver numbers better. Yes.
What do you mean when you say get off the oils?
So I recommend olive oil. We know that's good for us, right? Extra virgin. Think a Mediterranean diet. So I recommend olive oil. I recommend cooking with oil as little as humanly possible. any kind of oil, just because we don't need it and it's excessive. I think the only time we cook with oils at home is we'll rub a little olive oil on vegetables and roast them in the oven. But outside of that, we'd never cook with oils. And then we've all heard about the seed oils. They're called PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids. Those things are a nightmare. But you want to avoid canola oil, corn oil, sunflower oil. That stuff is horrible for you if you haven't already heard. So that's why I say oils. I also recommend people not eat lots of nuts and nut butters, which I know that might be confusing because we've all heard nuts are good for us. But I think the problem is excessive fats and overconsumption of them. And again, if you're trying to give your liver a break, you want to reduce that. Love your liver. Did you have a question?
Yeah, going back to the natural alternatives, now magnesium, if you wanted to add that, how much a day can you take? I mean, can you OD on?
So the question is, can you OD on magnesium? You will have a very loose diarrhea-like stool if you take too much magnesium, and you will know. The only type of magnesium I really see do that is called magnesium citrate, C-I-T-R-A-T-E. I don't even recommend that type. My favorite form of magnesium is magnesium chloride. And I usually have people do foot baths at night before bed with the magnesium oil, which we have here in the store. There's instructions right on the side on how to do the foot baths. And then our number one selling product in the store, this gentleman just got on it last week, right? The Mag ER. We'll see how it's working for him. But the Magnesium ER by Mother Earth Labs, it's 7 different forms of absorbable magnesium in an extended release, works over the course of the entire day. So that's my favorite, because the reason there's 7 different forms is when you eat foods, magnesium's always bound to other minerals. And so there's different forms of magnesium depending on what minerals they're bound to. And so they put all of that in this one formula. So I like the magnesium ER. I like the magnesium oil foot soaks. You can rub magnesium oil on your body. It's really, really hard to take too much magnesium. I've had people taking magnesium ER, doing magnesium oil foot soaks, and in 6-8 weeks, I'll recheck their blood work and their magnesium hasn't increased. And they're like, how can my magnesium not increase? So some people's does, some people's increases, yay. And then some people, it doesn't. And I'm not saying this is the only answer, but people who take magnesium and get on it regularly, they notice benefits. They notice they feel better, they sleep better, their cramping goes away, their muscles feel better. You know, when you get magnesium and you're deficient, you feel better, right? So the question is, if I take a bunch of magnesium and it's not increasing in my blood, why? My theory is that we're so chronically deficient and we've been deficient for so many years that when you start taking magnesium, every cell, every muscle, every tissue is like, oh, give me, right? Because like every part of the body's been missing it and needing it. So you're probably going to have to take magnesium for quite a while to actually get it to bump up in the blood, because I believe the body is so deficient in it. So yeah, I do believe all the stuff you guys have heard about magnesium. If you're in the natural health world, you know, everybody hears about magnesium, but it's true. I mean, I think everybody has a magnesium issue. And like I said, low magnesium over time can cause osteoporosis. So you got to have your magnesium. Yes.
What is the big deal about the L-threonate in magnesium?
So she asked, what's the big deal about L-threonate in the magnesium? Is because they believe that's the only form of magnesium that can get through the blood-brain barrier to help with brain issues, brain function, and things like that. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but that's why it's a big deal. That's why a lot of people recommend and take L-threonate, is because maybe they notice a calming effect on the brain. I don't know. I haven't taken that form personally. I don't know if it's in the magnesium ER. I'd have to look. But I know it's popular these days. And so that's great. But that's my understanding of why it's a big deal. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
For boron, can you take borax?
I don't know. It's a good question. She asked for boron, can you take borax? Do you know what borax is? Like, what does it say?
No, before, but it's been.
So is it boron bound with another mineral? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I've recommended borax for baths topically. For skin issues, I've seen it help tremendously. Psoriasis, eczema, things like that. I've recommended borax. You don't really recommend it internally, but let's just say I know people have taken it internally because it is a very strong antifungal. So like candida, yeast, fungal issues, mold, people have had benefits taking small amounts of borax, but of course it's not recommended. So, but I don't know about boron.
Boron, sodium, and oxygen.
There you go. It's boron, sodium, and oxygen. I have a feeling that'd be really good for you, but nobody's probably going to tell you to take it internally because
Take it in a bath, and if you're going to supplement boron, I would take a supplement that's for internal use.
yeah, I think we have a zinc formula that's got boron with it, where you can just take boron by itself. But doing it in a bath, only like they say, don't take it internally. Well, if you do it in a bath, you're absorbing it into your whole body because everything goes through your skin, so you're getting it that way anyway. But that's a good idea. I recommend borax baths a lot, especially for kids with different skin issues and stuff. So, what do you use it for, or do you want to share? You don't have to, but
In general, a little bit about it for related to bone health because it's oftentimes makes you strong and calcium.
yeah, okay,
So it takes for the bones.
cool. All right. Well, anything else? Should we call it a night? And you know what the class next week's on?
Diabetes.
Because it's the only one left. So sorry about that again. Hope you guys come out next week. If you can't, still sign up to make sure you get the recording. So thank you guys.